Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast with Eric Thompson.
Inspire, perform, profit.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast. This is your good friend, Eric Thompson. This is episode number 23, where I'm going to tell you about something called the Hawthorne Effect. The Hawthorne Effect is a classic management tool. This is kind of a classic management lesson that I'm going to take you through. I will tell you this has meant a big deal to me in my professional life, also my personal life. I learned about this at least 15 years ago, if not longer, and this really works. I'll tell you just kind of the short version. This would be the Cliff Notes. I'll tell you the Cliff Notes right up front. The Cliff Notes are this: if you want to change someone's behavior, make sure they know that you're paying attention. If you want to get your own behavior to change, make sure there's someone in your life that's paying attention. All right, so that's kind of how this goes. All right, again, it's called the Hawthorne Effect. Now I'm going to tell you the whole story of the Hawthorne Effect, and then we'll finish up with telling you some specific examples about how I use this and how you might be able to use this. So here's how this goes. There was a factory in Hawthorne, California, back in the day. I think it's like in the 1920s. So imagine like classic old school kind of factory. I forget what they made, but whatever they made, the owners of the factory, the owners of the business, wanted to increase the production of the factory workers. All right, so they wanted them to crank out more, whatever that they were cranking out. So more widgets, right? And so what they did is that they had some researchers come to the factory, and what they started experimenting with a few things. And one thing that they experimented with was the lighting. They thought, wow, I wonder what would happen if we were to increase the lighting in the factory. I wonder if that would cause these factory workers to be more productive. I wonder if that would cause them to be able to crank out some more widgets if we really cranked up the lighting. So what they did is they took kind of a baseline measurement of how many widgets they were producing, and then they started turning up the lighting. And of course, then they were watching, well, how many widgets were they now producing? And lo and behold, what happened? Well, lo and behold, what happened was there was more production, all right? So they were able to increase their productivity. The workers are more productive. The researchers are giving themselves high fives, right? The owners of the factory are giving themselves high fives saying, boy, maybe we found the answer. We found the way to get these people more productive. All we got to do is crank up the lighting. So they kept cranking it up higher. Productivity kept going up. Then they said, well, you know what? We better test the other side of this. You know, it would make sense to prove our hypothesis. It would make sense if we were to test the other side, meaning it would make sense to see what happens if we were to turn the lighting down. So they went back to the baseline lighting, kind of the base level where it was before, and then they started turning the lighting down where it got darker. And lo and behold, what happened? Well, the productivity kept going up. All right, so their hypothesis was all at once, it was proved wrong. So lighting went up, productivity went up, and then the lighting went down, productivity still went up. And so they wondered, well, what the heck is going on here? So it's clearly not the lighting, but something is causing these people to become more productive. What could it be? What's causing these people to be more productive? Well, you know what? It turned out to be the simple fact that the researchers were there. The researchers were there, and what were they doing? They were watching. So imagine if you're a factory worker in that factory, and all of a sudden, a bunch of researchers show up, you know, probably in their white lab coats, and they have their clipboards, and they're paying attention to you, and they're watching over you. You know, I don't know if they're walking around the factory or if they were, you know, from this high perch looking down upon the workers, but nonetheless, the workers knew that those researchers were there, paying attention and measuring them. They knew that they were being measured on their productivity. So if you were one of those workers, wouldn't it make sense that you're going to increase your productivity? Doesn't that just like intuitively make sense? If you're being watched by one of those people in their lab coats, wouldn't you become more productive? You'd be more efficient. You'd want to look at it in front of them. You're probably going to crank up your productivity. Well, that's exactly what happens. So the big lesson from the Hawthorne Effect, the big takeaway from this factory is that when people are being watched, they will perform better. All right, so when people are being watched, when they know they're being watched, they are going to perform better. So you can think about things like this in today's world. A few that came up for me. One is when I go shopping, when I go into a retail store, it's now so common to see that sign when you walk in that says something like, smile, you're on camera, or something to the effect of, you should know that we have cameras in our store. Now, I know that there's probably a legal reason, there's some legality and disclaimer kind of CYA thing going on there for that store that they probably have to disclose that they have cameras. But I also would think that those signs are there to let people know who may otherwise be inclined to, steal something from the store, be a shoplifter. It may be a message to those kind of people that they are being watched. So someone who may be inclined to steal something from that store, if they know they're being watched, is that going to dissuade them? Well, yeah, absolutely. I also think about the sports teams that I've been on. So, grade school, high school, the sports teams that I've been on, at practice, when I knew the coaches were watching, and of course they were always watching, pretty much all the time, but when the coaches were watching me practice, that always caused me to perform at a higher level, knowing that the coach was right there over my shoulder, watching my every move, watching my every action, evaluating if I should be a starter or not, waiting to give me some coaching tips. I'm going to perform way better in practice when I know that coach is watching. And I'm guessing it's the same for you too, whether you've been on a sports team or maybe it's a theater or choir or whatever, that the coach, the person in charge, when you know that they're watching and paying attention, don't you know, can't you just feel that where you're going to perform at a higher level when you know that they're watching? Another example that came up for me are report cards. So I can think about when I was a kid, I knew that my parents were going to want to see my report card. They're going to ask me about my report card. That caused me to perform even better in school, knowing that there would be a day where I'd have to sit in front of my mom or sit in front of my dad and show them my report card. They're going to ask me questions about my report card. We do the same thing with our kids. So we make a big deal out of the homework that comes back and the grades that they get and kind of the comments that they get from their teacher. We make a big deal out of the report card. We have a conversation about it. I want to send a message to my kids that I'm paying attention and that I care and that it's a big deal to me. So then they get from me that it is a big deal. And hopefully what that is causing them to do is perform even better in school, right? So how about in work life? So if you are a leader, if you're in a management role, if you have salespeople that are working for you, if you have staff that are working for you, some of the best ever words that you can use with them are the words that start with, the phrases that start with, hey, I noticed. I noticed that. When you say those words, I noticed that, some really wonderful, amazing, terrific things can happen, all right? They will perform better knowing that you notice. So in my world, what that would sound like is, hey, I noticed that you got that listing under contract. I noticed that you got that new listing. I noticed that you had a closing today. Hey, congratulations. So it's the high fives, it's the fist bumps, it's the celebrations, it's letting them know that you noticed. And I'll tell you, so often with people, you get like this great look on their face when you say these things to them that start with, I noticed. And sometimes you even get from them, geez, I didn't know that you know that, or that's really cool that you noticed that, or I had no idea that you were paying attention to those things. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, duh, of course I'm paying attention to those things. But oftentimes, they may start to make assumptions that we are not, as leaders, paying attention to them. So when we can use the words, I noticed, goes a long, long, long way, all right? So it's not just using those words, I noticed. The way to take this even further, the way to really leverage the Hawthorne effect is with a scorecard. So the scorecard is, I believe, the best coaching and management tool that I have kind of in my toolbox when I coach real estate agents. The scorecard is a way for that agent to measure their weekly activities. So the theory is they carry it around with them during the week, and they're just keeping track of the activities that cause them to be productive. It's set up where those activities, if they accomplish them, their goal is inevitable, right? So if they were to do 45 weeks a year of doing all the activities that are laid out on that scorecard, if they were to do those on a consistent basis and get those things done, then their goal will inevitably come true, all right? So that's the theory behind the scorecard. So what happens is they have that scorecard with them during the week. They're keeping track of their activities, they're totaling up their score at the end of the week, and then, this is where the Hawthorne Effect comes in, then they have to give it to me. So they either leave it on my desk or they email it to me, or we look at it in our Monday group coaching session. And what I know is that they know I'm going to watch, they know I'm going to pay attention. I know that they know that I'm going to be looking at that score and I'm going to be asking them questions about the things that are on there. And what I know is that's going to cause them to perform better. They're more likely to get those things done knowing that I'm going to look. And ultimately it's to their benefit, right? So that's kind of the irony of it, is that I'm looking over them, I'm watching them, I'm keeping track of this, I'm asking questions, but ultimately who wins? They win because they get to accomplish their goal. But we increase the odds of the thing happening because they know that I'm paying attention to that. Another example is our Monday huddle. So I meet with my key leaders every single Monday at 8:30, and we have our own scorecard. We have our own things that we're keeping track of every single week. We each have one or two things that we get really focused on for that particular week. And that meeting is really simple. We just have to report in if we got that thing done or not. All right. So we each take a turn reflecting on reviewing our past week. We let everyone know if we got our one big goal accomplished. We call it a lead measure. And that's all we do in the meeting. So we just go around the room. So knowing that I have to report in to my key leaders if I got my big thing done for the week, what does that do for me? Well, that greatly increases the odds that I'm going to get that thing done, because I imagine that meeting at 8:30 on Monday, and I imagine letting everyone know if I got the thing done or not. And what do I want to do? I want to be able to tell them that I got the thing done, so that just greatly increases the odds for that thing getting done for me. And I also know that it has the same effect on them, all right? So it's that accountability and that knowing that other people are paying attention is what can really cause productivity and efficiency and just simply getting things done to increase. I'll finish with this. This is not just an accountability tool, all right? So saying things like, I noticed, having things like a scorecard, it's not only about accountability, it's also a path to engagement, all right? So I can think about the best bosses, the best leaders that I've had in my career. They're the ones who are the most engaged with me. And really what that means, they are the ones who are paying the most attention. So the best leaders, the best bosses that I've ever had are the ones where I have felt like they know what's going on in my world. They ask me questions about what's going on in my world, which really demonstrates that they really, really care, right? So on the opposite extreme, the ones that are disengaged, the ones that are not asking me questions, the ones that are not saying things to me like, hey, I noticed that, or congratulations on, or tell me more about this or that thing that happened. The ones that are not saying that are the ones that I have like the least amount of engagement with, the least amount of like buy-in with. It really decreases the odds that I'm going to be like, marching right behind them and totally bought into their vision. If you want to get people engaged, if you want to get people to care about your vision, if you want to demonstrate that you really care about that other person and what's going on for them, if you want them bought in, if you want them doing the things that you want them to do, quite simply, all you got to do is just ask them, all right? Ask them about what's going on in their world. Show them that you notice, demonstrate that you really give a you know what in the first place, And it just starts with saying, I noticed. So it's a great example of the little things make a huge difference. So go out of your way in your leadership role, whether you're a parent, whether you're a manager or a leader, a boss, no matter what, in your leadership role, go out of your way to find the opportunity to say, hey, I noticed that. You will get people to light up. They will be so appreciative that you are paying attention, all right? So that's your lesson. That's how the Hawthorne Effect works. Go get that in play. Go make that work for you. You're going to see a huge difference in your life with the people that you work with, the people that you lead, the people that you coach. You can use it back on yourself, get other people in your life who are paying attention to you, who are going to ask you about your world and if you got your goals, your activities accomplished or not. Get those people into your life. Hey, if you want more things like this, if you want me even more engaged with you, what you want to do next is get signed up for the Leading Edge. The Leading Edge Inner Circle is our membership program. It's our deep dive into philosophies and theories like this, into lessons like this. I give you way more tools than just the things you learn about in this podcast. Go to jointheleadingedge.com where you can get signed up. In the meantime, enjoy life on the leading edge. I will catch you in the next podcast. Bye.